The late afternoon sun blazed across the dusty countryside, turning the long stretch of road into a shimmering ribbon of heat. Veronica Lane, CEO of a luxury real estate firm, tapped the steering wheel of her sleek black Mercedes in frustration. Her GPS had gone silent 10 minutes ago, and now, with an alarming sputter and cough, the car rolled to a slow stop. She stepped out, high heels sinking into the gravel, and popped the hood, though she had no idea what she was looking for. No signal, no help, no clue, she muttered, shielding her eyes as she scanned the horizon. All around her were fields of golden corn and open sky, beautiful, yes, but useless when you're stranded. As sweat began to bead along her brow, a faint rumble broke the silence. An old pickup truck, rusty but dependable, creaked to a stop on the opposite side of the road. Out stepped an elderly man in overalls, his boots caked in earth, his face lined but warm. "Car trouble," he called out, his voice kind but weathered. Veronica hesitated, wary. In her world, strangers didn't stop without a motive. But something in his tone disarmed her. "Yeah, it just died on me." He nodded, walking over slowly. "Name's Henry. Let's take a look. Might be something simple." She blinked at him, this farmer, with his oil-stained hands and patient eyes, and for the first time that day, felt a flicker of relief. Help had come, just not in the package she expected. Henry leaned under the hood, his experienced hands feeling around the engine with quiet confidence. Veronica stood nearby, hugging her arms, unsure whether to be grateful or embarrassed. Her expensive outfit looked absurd next to the dirt-smudged overalls of this man who seemed to belong to a simpler, slower world. "Looks like your alternator belt slipped," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Lucky for you, I've fixed worse with less." He gave her a reassuring smile. "I've got tools back at the farm. Just a few minutes up the road." She hesitated. "Is it safe to tow with that?" she asked, eyeing his rusty pickup. Henry chuckled. "She may not be pretty, but she's strong." Moments later, Veronica found herself in the passenger seat of his truck, windows rolled down, the warm wind blowing in. The cab smelled faintly of earth and hay. No leather, no AC, no navigation screen. Just a man humming softly to an old country tune as the sun dipped lower. At the farm, he backed the truck beside a weathered barn and began working. She offered to help, though her stilettos made it laughable. Still, he welcomed her presence with gentle humor. When her stomach growled, he nodded toward the house. "Why don't you come in? My wife made stew this morning. Simple, but it'll fill you up." Inside the modest kitchen, with mismatched chairs and a flickering ceiling fan, she met Clara, Henry's wife, a soft-spoken woman with flour on her apron and eyes that sparkled with warmth. As they sat down to steaming bowls of stew and cornbread fresh from the oven, Veronica felt strangely at ease. There was no pretense here. Just kindness. Pure and unpolished. She'd come seeking help, but was already receiving far more than she imagined. The aroma of herbs and slow-cooked vegetables filled the tiny kitchen, mixing with the quiet clinks of spoons on ceramic bowls. Veronica sat at the worn wooden table, flanked by Henry and Clara, watching as the couple shared gentle smiles and stories about their farm, their children, and the rhythm of their days. There was no Wi-Fi here. No ticking clock. No rush. Clara refilled Veronica's glass of sweet tea and offered a slice of peach pie. "Henry picked them fresh this morning," she said with pride. Veronica took a bite and closed her eyes. It wasn't just the taste, it was the feeling. A warmth that settled deep in her chest. Something unfamiliar. She glanced at the chipped dishes, the hand-stitched curtains, the faded photographs on the wall. In her multi-million-dollar condo, everything was sleek and perfect, but sterile. Her dinners were often takeout eaten alone, her conversations brief and transactional. Henry chuckled as Clara teased him about burning toast that morning. "She keeps me humble," he said with a grin. Been doing that since 1978. Veronica found herself laughing, genuinely, for the first time in days. Maybe weeks. Then Henry said something that struck a chord deep within her. You know, we've helped a few folks over the years. Stranded travelers, folks down on their luck. It don't take much to be kind. Just takes heart. She looked at him, surprised by the simplicity of his words. There was no agenda in his help. No expectation. Just a quiet belief in doing what's right. And in that moment, Veronica felt something shift. She came to this place as a woman with everything. Yet somehow, she had never felt so grounded, so seen. The sun was sinking low, casting a golden hue over the rolling fields as Veronica's car purred softly, the engine humming with new life. Henry had managed to fix it with nothing but a few old tools, a spare belt from his garage, and steady, practiced hands. She was amazed, and more than a little humbled. As she walked toward the driver's side, Veronica reached into her handbag and pulled out a crisp white envelope, thick with cash. Her company kept emergency funds for situations just like this. She stepped toward Henry, holding it out. Please, she said, her voice quiet but firm. For your time. And for the meal. You didn't have to do all this. Henry looked at the envelope, then up at her, smiling softly. Ma'am, he said, I didn't help you for money. Veronica blinked. But, you gave me hours of your day. He nodded. I did. Because you needed help. Just like others have helped me in hard times. You pay it forward, that's all I ask. She stared at him, her throat tightening. No one in her world spoke like this. Everyone wanted something. Deals, favors, returns. But here was a man who asked for nothing, yet had given so much. Clara stepped out onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. Drive safe, dear, she called out kindly. Watch out for deer near the creek. Veronica stood for a long moment, the envelope still in her hand, heart heavy in the best way. Then, quietly, she put it back in her purse. As she pulled away, she looked into the rearview mirror. The couple stood waving, framed by the porch light and a sky painted in soft orange and lavender. She came seeking a repair, and left with her soul mended. The same dusty road stretched before the farm, but today it was anything but quiet. A few news vans were parked near the fence, and several curious neighbors stood by, whispering and watching as a sleek black SUV pulled into Henry's driveway. Henry stood on the porch in his old overalls, scratching his head beneath a faded ball cap. Clara, he called gently, you'd better come see this. Out stepped Veronica Lane, but not the stressed, high-heeled businesswoman they'd once met. Today, she wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked lighter, softer, free. Behind her, trucks bearing logos that read Henry's Hope Foundation rolled in, carrying crates of equipment, fertilizer, and tools. Several young volunteers began unloading them. What is all this? Henry asked, bewildered. Veronica smiled, eyes glistening. It's for you. And for every small farmer like you who's ever helped a stranger, asked for nothing, and kept this country's heart beating. He was speechless. I took your advice, she said softly. I paid it forward. I sold off part of my company and started a foundation in your name. Henry's Hope helps small farms with grants, resources, and support. Because kindness like yours deserves to grow. Clara's hand found Henry's. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Veronica stepped forward and gently hugged them both. You thought you just fixed a car that day, she whispered, but you fixed something in me. And now, you're fixing the world. As the sun dipped behind the fields, cameras clicked and lights flashed, but Henry didn't care. He was still the same simple man. Only now, the seeds of his quiet kindness had blossomed into something far bigger than he'd ever dreamed.